The first step in repairing flood damage is to dry wet areas. This will prevent the formation of mold and fungi. These fungi can cause illnesses and even death. However, you should be careful when you are trying to dry wet spots because you might end up getting into a mold spore infestation. If you have no idea how to start, you should consider hiring a professional to do the work for you. You may also need to purchase special equipment to remove the water from the area. Be sure to wear protective gear. Next, try using dehumidifiers or fans to dry wet areas. If you have standing water, a heavy-duty wet vacuum can help you get rid of the water. You can also hire a heavy-duty wet vacuum to remove the water and the carpeting from the affected area. Ensure there is adequate air circulation in the area to minimize the risk of mold. It is also recommended that you get the wet area professionally cleaned. If you do not know how to clean a flooded room, you can rent cleaning equipment from your local rental stores. After you have cleaned the water, you can use dehumidifiers and fans to help dry wet areas. You can also hire an expert to evaluate the material. If it is porous, you should consider replacing it with new materials. It is important to remember that you should not try to remove mold with a sponge or other cleaning solution. It could spread the mold spores and may even cause health issues in the future. Once the wet area is completely dry, you should make sure that it is completely free of mold and fungus. If it is not, you could run the risk of developing mold. You should also try to avoid using wet items like towels, clothing, and laundry, which contribute to the spread of the bacteria in the home. In addition, it is essential to dry wet areas to prevent the growth of mold. There are some ways to prevent the spread of mold by keeping the wet items out of the house. Another way to prevent mold is to dry wet areas as quickly as possible. If you have a lot of water in a room, you should try to get rid of it as quickly as possible. This will reduce the risk of mold growth in the area and also minimize the risk of structural damage. You should also keep in mind that you shouldn't let your clothes get wet if you can avoid it. In this way, you can protect your home from mold. A wet yard can be very frustrating. A mud puddle isn't good for anyone. In addition, it can ruin your landscaping and other belongings. You should also take steps to prevent the mud and fungi from growing in your yard. Regardless of the causes of your wet yard, it is important to hire an experienced service to help you repair the problem. You can get all of the information you need by contacting a professional. If you've recently suffered a flood or a flooded basement, you should contact a professional right away to repair any damages. Wet areas are not only uncomfortable, but they can also be dangerous. Proper water damage restoration should be performed as soon as possible to avoid mold and mildew. When there is a lot of water in a room, you should have it dried as quickly as possible. If you don't want the mud to contaminate your home, it's better to hire a disaster restoration company. Adding mulch to wet areas can help prevent mudspouts. It's best to add organic matter to the soil around plants. It will improve water absorption by adding organic matter to the soil. If you have a hard pan, you can dig the wet area to eliminate the excess water. A hard pan is another problem that should be solved. It will help to dry the wet area and encourage beneficial creatures in the area. If the wet area is a result of a muddy soil, you should apply organic compost. This will help the soil dry faster and prevent compaction. When you use organic compost, you can reduce the amount of water in the soil by applying it on the top 6 inches of the lawn. When the moisture in the soil is reduced, it will help the grass to grow in the area. This will help to prevent the mud sprinkling of water.